statements. Again, let me clarify the concerns as I hear them, because I know you're hearing them in a little different way. There were, when we first started the project years ago, there were then hypothetical numbers. It was $35 million for the school, the library, and the school, and it was supposedly going to be $14 a month, hypothetically built on money that was supposed to be available through the savings of bringing in our garbage in-house, as opposed to, renting out the services. And it was supposed to be $500,000 a year from the park apartments, and that was all hypothetical down the road a piece. I can tell you this, the only thing I will tell you is that any major project does take years to go. And when you're talking about circumventing, which is what happened here, the opportunity for the school to take advantage of a referendum and 40 to 50% of the cost from being paid by the government, okay, for the building of a school, because we needed, as per a financial expert called Phoenix that gave advice about this project only this past summer, saying that the only real conclusion that can come about with this project is if we had a relationship with the school as an aggregate, that we would partner with them, because they had a zero deficit and a $52 million borrowing power. Our debt service skyrocketed over the years. Over $40 million with only a $52 million ceiling of borrowing power. If we were not at that time merged as almost like a co-signer, even though they don't get pelted if we don't pay our part, they looked at us as a better risk. Okay, the problem with that and having to use the schools in that way is that we took away from the people in our community the availability to actually have a referendum, have a vote, and actually based on your agreement that yes, we need a school, yes, we'd like to bring our kids out of the leasing spaces, we lost the ability, which was already approved, to have that partially paid for by the state government. So that means you pay in full boat, right there, okay? Right there for the school. That's the first thing, the right they took away. The second right was that as leaders, we should have the ability and the honesty that when we see that the situation in our, when it comes to the cost of living problems and the recession, that we should have the courage to say, it was a great idea, it was more than 4 years ago, it was 6 years ago. When it was laid out on the table to me, I was rah-rah. I was in Trenton saying, we need this. I have 4 grandchildren of my own. I wanted the kids to have something, because there are some things that are not revenue building, okay, that make a town, as the council at large talked about, more inviting, okay? But when we talk about fear-mongering, we have to remember, don't start telling you that there's no reason to come to Roselle. Because we have phenomenal reasons to come to Roselle. It is a beautiful town.
Yes, it is.
We have Warrego that has all kinds of opportunities. We have the Girl Scouts, we have Pop Warner, we have gals, we have soccer, we have a rec program, we have good streets. Some are still being fixed. Every year we try to manage the infrastructure, okay, on an ongoing basis based on the grants that we receive. Now, we have to depend on that money to balance the budget. What we're talking about here is not just the increase based on what the building out of this kind of complex will be over 30 years, which comes to $100 million, okay? But also the cost and increase of your taxes for school, your taxes for county. It's not about being afraid, it's about being realistic. It's about saying this is what can happen. Now the numbers, there's nothing wrong. What we're talking about, in all honesty, is when you are going to open a business and you go to a bank, they say to you, well, where's your revenue going to come from? What's the projected stream of revenue? So those numbers on that spreadsheet that we're giving out, this is what it's going to cost for the lease, but that's what we're going to have, the lease for 30 years, okay, until such time the lease is turned over to us when it's fully paid off, right? So over that period of time, they're saying over the years, well, we're anticipating that we're going to see revenue coming from these other, investments, these developments, okay? If it had started a couple of years ago, the money wouldn't have been there at all. Not any money, okay? Because it takes, you see with the park, it's taking time for that, to be built out in totality. And on top of that, it's gonna take time for the COs and a number of people to fill it up, and for they to start paying full boat in terms of taxes, because they have a special pilot that they pay up almost inflation-wise, slowly but surely. There will come a point in time, I don't know what it is exactly, 10 years or whatever, where it will look, for all intents and purposes, like we have matched and been able to, afford to pay this debt service, okay? Now, here's what the issue is and what people are saying. There has not been a costing out of the running of the operation. In just general, and I've been asking for 2.5 years for that proposal. It is yet to come. That should be something that's possible to do. We already have the general layout. We already have an idea, I'm sure, what Recreation has in mind. We've met with the Y, we talked to other people, we visited other types of establishments to see how they're running it, what are they doing. Okay, now, if someone's meeting and figuring that all out, I haven't been informed, and I haven't seen a single number that reflects what the overall cost of running a competitive pool will be, what the insurances will cost, what the cost of staff will be, and everything else that goes with it. And then on top of it, how many hours a day you're gonna be open, how many days a week. Okay, I've heard some things thrown around about, oh, we'll rent out the space at the pool and we'll charge whatever it is, and instead of people going to other places to have competitive training, they'll come here to our pool and pay us. Now, that's a possibility. Show me the contracts. Let me see if there's anything, another stream of revenue that might offset the cost. It's not that it won't happen, it has to happen. If this goes through, it has to happen. And if we haven't the ability to say, let's lay this down and rethink different ways of doing it, like possibly having a referendum, and do we know that we're meeting the school needs essentially for the type of building we need, and can they get paid by the state if you guys all decide it's a yes and we need a school? Okay, and then secondarily, you're right, someone brought up the library, okay? I agree with Brandon, that will not pay for an entire new building over there.
I'm not saying that.
But what I'm saying is, let me just say, right as we speak now, there's development now coming in, and also chomping at our feet right now. There are some people that are interested in developing here. So it will be incumbent upon us to work very hard, because we are built out, and there isn't a whole lot of space to continue building out to get ratables to help offset the cost of your taxes. The bottom line is, the idea that we should think that every year that 2 or 3.5% increase to you should be an automatic, not that you should fight it to try to really bring it down. And the reason we can't bring it down is because when they come to the budget table, our department heads, it's way above that. 9%, 8%. We have to start cutting and telling the department heads we have to scale back. And then when they hit that 2% or that 2.5 or 3, that's it, we're done. So take that 2.5, and then you're going to tack on an increase in the cost of doing business in Roselle. Partially because we can't put it in capital budget, it has to go in our general budget because it's a lease. That means it comes out of the general budget. So the hunk of money every year that has to come out of that, where is it coming out of? As everything escalates, including pensions, not just roads are done with grants and capital budget money, but the other things that you're constantly paying for tend to go up. And then if you add employees and cost of living raises and civil service union contracts and all of that other stuff. So to just work in a vacuum and say, oh, these numbers here reflect what's going to happen to the community is to pretend that that budget isn't impacted by all the other costs. That's insane. All I'm saying, as leaders, we have to have the courage to sit down, take some time, take a breather, and let's tear it apart, let's shred it. And then let's see what we can do and build moving forward that will put less pressure, and let's not automatically just assume, just because we can raise it up to 2.5 or 3.5 every year, we should and we can. We should be saying, how can we get it down? And is it possible? And if it's not possible, then how can we keep putting people in debt? You know, so you are not getting all the numbers. Yes, I agree with my colleague that there's a spreadsheet and it puts out all these development and what we'll be getting each year for them and how it minuses the debt service for the mind and body, but it doesn't have anything to do with the debt service that we have that's over 40 million here, or the emergencies that happen that sometimes increase our debt service, or just maintaining the infrastructure of our town. Okay, those things have to be done. We've been doing it. Okay, and we have to work hard. If this goes through, counter to the community's desire to see it re-looked at, and I think that's what you're asking. You're saying, step back, take a pause. Let's look at this again and see if maybe there's a better way or a less costly way to do this. Go forward with the school maybe, but even then I have to ask, are we really, is that exactly what we need? Or should we be building, you know, kind of a vanilla box school that can be used not only maybe, you know, for other crowded areas of our community schools? Might be that, you know, we can take people, the children out of the least places and put them in another structure if we need to build something greater and bigger for middle or for high school. But that is up to the Board of Education to think about and look at in the long term. And the next 10 years what's happening, not what's happening right today, and whether these numbers jive, but whether it's going to jive for the next 10, 20, 30 years, and I'm not going to be around then, but I'm fighting with every inch of my life to say we owe the public to understand, at least for the next decade, what this impact will be, and not hypothetically, as close to accurate as possible. And maybe we should be sitting down and thinking about whether we can still create beautiful things for this borough at a more cost-efficient level. So we have a difference of opinion. I don't disagree with the councilman at large. I'm just saying that I'm not signing this tonight or any other night. It's not going to have my signature, but my signature does not mean anything. It's just superficial. But as I said before, it's my name on here, and I will not do that. It will be up to the BA or the president to sign it if they so desire and the council decides it. That's my only statement regarding this. If there's anyone else